Rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here comes the West Indies. And when you're facing the generals, nearly every ball is a funeral. And when we batting, brother, go and put your men on the boundary line. And if you give we a liquor, that is merely a hiccup. Look, you win the little battle, you lose the war. It's the same result every time. Everybody sing. Here comes the West Indies. Here comes the West Indies. Them rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here comes the West Indies. I'll tell you now. Here comes the West Indies. Here comes the West Indies. Them bad boys gonna bring you to your knees. Here comes the West Indies. Special request to the Trinity posse. And what about the Guyana posse? And what about the Jamaica posse?
23 competition, mainly because we feel we're losing players between under 15 and under 19. We were losing players after under 19 before they get to the regional level. And those two important areas, obviously sponsorship is needed for those areas, but we're working on it. The whole question of a cricket academy, finishing school for West Indian players, youthful players is also on the drawing board. Certainly these things will be revealed to you in the not too distant future.
Any plans to tap that vast resource out there in North America?
Well, I think you're aware that we are attempting to tap it. The Red Stripe Bowl, the very fact that the Red Stripe Bowl is televised live in North America says a lot about what we plan to do and try to do in North America. But we're tapping the market. The North American market, as you know, is a very difficult market to get into. You come from that market. Cricket is not a sport as far as they're concerned. And we are making, I suppose, cautious treks into that market to see what we can do in it.
Mr. Andrew Seeley, Secretary of the West Indies Cricket Board of Control, thank you very much for talking to Caribbean.
Thank you very much.
You've had a long association, Clive, with West Indies Cricket, first as a player, captain, and administrator. Of course, now you are the manager of the team at a very critical juncture in the history of West Indies cricket. You commented recently that you're getting lots of gray hairs. After the victory in Jamaica, how do you feel?
Oh, yes, I think I feel elated, but as I said, one swallow doesn't make a summer. So the point is that we have to try and improve on what we're doing at the moment. We've just beaten the best team in the world quite convincingly, and I feel we can do it again here. Once we play in the same sort of manner, with the same gusto, the same sort of camaraderie, and the same sort of professionalism and discipline, I think that we can do it. And I think, Barbados has always been a favorite ground for West Indies cricket of such where victories are concerned. And we're hoping that we can go one up here. If we can, we can be 2-1 going into the last test match. I think it would be excellent for our cricket, especially for the young players, because they will be involved in the winning side. And then the World Cup is coming up. So that will give us the type of impetus that is needed.
What would you say, Clive, is the biggest problem with West Indies cricket at the moment?
I think it's just that we don't have a lot of top-class cricketers of such. We have to fast-track a lot of the youngsters. We have young players here who just made one first-class 100. So if you're playing for any test team, you must have about 800s under your belt so that you'll know how to build the innings. So we are struggling in that respect, but the talent is there. And we hope that we'll sort of, give them that sort of longer stint that will really see them to fruition.
It is no secret that you have said in the past or hinted that you wanted a much more involved say in terms of the West Indies cricket. Are you optimistic that time is coming soon?
I don't know. I've said it, and they've left it alone. So I'm just I'm continuing doing my job and hoping to do it effectively, working assiduously with the young players, with the captain, with the coach, and all the other coaches around. We've got to try and get our cricket back on track. It's not going to be easy, but life was not meant to be easy.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about our batting, because that is probably the main problem area. There's been a lot of talk about the technical deficiencies of our batsmen. Do you share that view?
Well, yes, that's because of the players coming through that quickly, and they are coming through with faults. Hence, that's why we're saying we should have an academy. The point is that the players are not like in the old days where you had to serve at least 3 years apprenticeship before you played for the West Indies, unless you had exceptional ability. But here, because of our sort of slow tempo, more or less, where Test cricket is concerned, we have to pick players who are not experienced. So they are coming through with faults. We have to rectify them. It means that they're learning on the job. And you can't do that really in where Test cricket is concerned because of the technology that they have these days. A guy can order video on you and who can be able to work on your strengths and your weaknesses. So you now have to get players with a minimal amount of faults. And that to me is what we're trying to do as early as possible.
Your generation had the good fortune of playing a lot in England and in the county cricket, and of course you gained a lot of experience from that, which you brought back to the Caribbean team. Do you think that such experience is going to help our players these days?
Yes, I think we were quite fortunate that we played county cricket, and it gave us that sort of extra professional edge to see us through. And I feel that it's a bit unfortunate that some of our guys haven't experienced that. So that's why we have to have more cricket and tougher cricket. Our captains have got to be more with it. Our coaches have got to be stronger and picking out the faults fairly early. So, they have a lot of work to do, and I'm hoping that we'll get it right pretty soon.
Your tenure as a manager, I think, will end in a few months. What's next?
I don't know yet. Yes, it finishes in October, so I've got a fair amount of time. We have the World Cup. So I don't know, but I'm sure that I'll be involved somewhere with cricket.
Clive Lloyd, former West Indies captain and legendary cricketer, thank you very much for talking to us here in the Caribbean Nation.
And a very good evening to you and welcome to today's edition of West Indies Cricket 101. Going back a little in time there, no, in case you were wondering, that interview was not done last month or last year. That interview, believe it or not, it was done in 1999. And we were there, I think, yes, it was at Kensington Oval. Kensington Oval. I used to get around in those days. We still have that program called Carib Nation, and we would travel the Caribbean as guests of the tourist boards. And Caribbean Airlines moved us around in exchange for advertisement. And so I had a good fortune during those days to not just cover politics, but to cover cricket and culture and the likes. And it was such a pleasure talking to Clive Lloyd. I got the opportunity on that trip, I remember, to talk to Conrad Hunt and Wesley Hall and David Halford, Clive Lloyd, Rex Pereira. They're somewhere there in the archives, but it was, you couldn't see there, but I was trembling, talking to Clive Lloyd. I mean, small bayou grop, Clive Lloyd was it for us Guyanese. I mean, everything about Clive Lloyd. And there you were years later as an adult getting to talk to a legend. And I played that video tonight because I think it's a good segue into what we want to talk about. That interview was done in 1999. So you're talking about almost 26 years ago. And the issues that Clive talking about there, are there issues that we still have today? Yes. Are we tempted to say that in 25 years we have gone nowhere? I don't know. I'm going to ask the experts because they're here tonight. Let's get going with the conversation immediately because, Clive Lloyd has been in the news for the last couple of weeks, partly because the ICC or some members of the ICC are proposing that you have a two-tier system now in world cricket, in Test cricket. That would mean teams like the West Indies being relegated to a second tier. And immediately Clive Lloyd was out of the blocks, and he had quite a lot to say, and very movingly so. And we want to talk about that and what that means to world cricket, what it means to West Indies cricket, and what it says about where we have been in 25 years. I also read in the papers today that Lloyd is about to manage the Guyanese Academy and Cricket Academy, and there he was, 1999 again, 26 years ago talking about academy. You know, we'll hear from the experts tonight. Please share the link and let everyone know that we're on this evening, West Indies Cricket 101, Dr. Vincent Adams and the legendary Basil Butcher. You know, there were people in the village who said, what junior you're talking about? The man is either man or he's not a man. What? So we never in the village talk about any junior, right? Anytime you were a junior, junior was your first name. And there were some people whose first name was Junior. The legendary Basil Butcher and must I say, the legendary Vince Adams. Vince Adams became legend, not just in one area. Of course, he was a cricketer, opening batsman for Guyana, and played with Clive Lloyd and all those in the golden age of Guyanese and West Indian cricket. And of course, he was tutored by the legendary Basil Butcher. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome to this evening's edition of West Indies Cricket 101.
Good evening, Dr. Hines. Good evening, Vincent. Good evening to your viewers.
Hey, good evening, Dr. Hines and Basil, and welcome to our viewers once again. Happy New Year. I don't think we haven't
been on since last year.
Yes, since before Christmas.
Yes.
So happy New Year.
Hines took a Christmas season break.
Yeah.
You're a real Guyanese, Hinesy.
Oh, yes.
You're on Christmas break.
You know, I tried.
The season is not the one day.
It's not the one day, you know. I try and say, well, you know, let's get out to this whole colonial thing. Don't do. But when Christmas comes, whether I'm in Guyana or nothing, the thing does bite me. You know, you're not there. Doc, let me start with you. As you listen to that, you watch that clip that of that interview I did with your colleague, your friend, and the legendary Clive Lloyd. What went through your mind?
Well, I think you answered the question, or you asked the question, which is exactly what went through my. Has anything changed? And unfortunately, nothing has changed. I mean, just go back in the decades. We've been hearing, even with changing administration, we've been hearing all the time, well, we're going to do this and do that. But things, nothing has really changed. And of course, cricket is the dynamics of cricket internationally. Yeah, so I kind of sympathize with the local West Indian cricket, because when the administration comes, it's not easy dealing with and managing cricket in the West Indies, because it's not as if the West Indies is on an island by itself, no pun intended. But it's driven mainly, of course, is finance. And a lot of it, and especially now we're seeing, we're going to get into this conversation here. I don't think any plan that we put in place would be, effective if we do not get the assistance we need from the ICC, for example, and some other better arrangement is made for us to survive financially. And things have changed. So, and then now, when you're talking about going down this track of a two-tier system, to me, that's getting rid of West Indies cricket. And especially when you hear the former chairman, and this just didn't come up, it's not coincidental that the former chairman Barclay, when he was, he was leaving, he is suggesting that we split up, the island split up by themselves. He didn't just pull that out of the air. It's not coincidental that this discussion of two-tier system is coming up. I think this has been a discussion behind the scene at the ICC to start with. So to get back to answer your question, hey, I empathize with the administration of cricket, and we might have a whole lot of really good plans, but at the same time, we're not operating in a vacuum. We need a lot of help, and I do not see the help coming, especially with what we're hearing about a two-tier system. this has come from the West, from the ICC now. We're hearing about a two-tier system, and we're hearing about them suggesting that we should be splitting up in West Indies cricket. So that's where we are.
Basil, 1999, talking to the legendary Clive Lloyd, talking to him about the state of West Indies cricket, talking to him about something that you have belabored over the years that I've been following your commentary on cricket. The fact that somebody comes, they have one test century, one first-class century, sometimes not even that, and they're thrown in the deep end. And we have suffered so much. So many of our talented batsmen, for example, have come onto the scene and just fizzled after 1 or 2 years because they're not able to compete at that level. Lloyd talked about that. He talked about the importance of county cricket in helping to hone the skills of our batsmen, and of course our cricketers gone in days gone by. As you watch that clip from 25 years ago, anything has changed?
I mean, it's ironic that you played that clip and to hear the word of the great man saying something that was even said even before that, and we are saying the same exact things today. Now, note, Brian Lara was in the West Indies team. Carl Hooper was playing for the West Indies. I think Carl Hooper was with the West Indies. Chandler Paul was with the West Indies. I mean, Jimmy Adams was playing for the West Indies at that time. No, I mean, those batters, well, not Jimmy so much, but Chandler Paul, Hooper, and Lara. We have nothing today that even comes comparable to those three batters. And yet still, Clive was talking about our batting deficiencies 25 years ago. And we had, at the time, Lara was arguably the best batsman in the world, right? So, and now you put those same words, he would be saying the same thing today, but the situation is even more dire today, right? I mean, he talked about the academy, but I don't necessarily think it's simply an academy. Right, academy is part of the process, but there's a lot of fundamentals one should have already acquired before one is called to go to an academy per se. If we have an academy around for our best of the lot, but again, we need academies, if you want to use that terminology, for our best prospects in each territory, so they can get the right tools and to develop their skills in each territory. That's a situation where, you know, I said I made a point. We got this big hullabaloo about governance. Guyana and Barbados did not go to the meeting, etc., and the whole cry of governance. I say this: let's do it back to front. And what I mean by back to front, in every territory, let us focus on building a high-performance cricket structure, which would mean the governance will have to be highly professional, transparent, accountable, right? So by default, you will be putting in every territory a governance structure that will reflect the demands that we need to meet today, right? And so the squabbling that's going on at the top eventually would dissipate because the demands below them would require they have to make the necessary changes at the top.
You know, Dr. Hines, you know, and I listened to an excellent, and you know, my friends send me these videos all the time. There was an excellent interview. Dave Cameron, I don't know if Basil, you saw it.
Yes, I saw it. Yes.
I thought that was an outstanding interview. But one of the things I gleaned from that, and I think it was an excellent point, in terms of the fundamental cycle of the demise of West Indies cricket. And Clive Lloyd himself, in his, you know, in talking about the two-tier system, by his own words, Clive Lloyd said that T20 has destroyed our cricket. Those were his words.
Yeah.
And here is basically what I gleaned from Dave Cameron, and it makes sense. Dave says when these decisions are being made, the West Indies only have power when you're winning. You only have power when you're winning. They listen to you, they come, they see. And he says that this T20 is going to destroy it. But here's where he started. He said, first of all, we invest heavily in our players. Academies, those are fine. Build the academies and you train the cricketers. But when they've accomplished that skill with our investment, they don't want to play Test cricket. They go out there, the T20 circuit, they make a whole lot of money, but they do not come back and play Test cricket. Like Clive said, he said what T20 is entertainment, but Test cricket is an examination, something to that effect.
That's what they call it, Test cricket, as he said.
No, he said T20 is an exhibition. Test cricket is an examination.
Yes.
And a lot of people wants to see Test cricket, but he said when you've invested heavily through academies, etc., build these players, develop their techniques that Basil was talking about, it really goes to naught because you're developing them for you to make, for you to win. And we know the first focus has always been on Test cricket, but now T20 has taken over. So these guys, they go, they make their millions, and we're all in agreement with that. We have no problem. But then they don't want to come back and play Test cricket. So now you're investing for a certain objective, but then when it comes to satisfying that objective, what you've invested is gone. And you got to start back from zero. So that is the dilemma. They don't want, and then by them not coming back, we're losing all the time. So we don't have any power anymore like we used to have when we used to be winning. And now they're talking about, splitting us up and basically getting rid of us because we're not bringing anything to the table. They're taking our players, making the money in IPLs, and because that's where the money is. India's really controlling everything. They're taking our players that we invested in. They're making the money, and our players are not coming back to us. So as far as they're concerned, the West Indies, we have no value but to develop our players, and then they're going to take them. So we've got to, I don't know how to, we've got to find a way to come up and see how we're going to solve this. But it's Clive himself said, it's disturbing, very disturbing. And I don't know what they're going to come up with.
Basil, I want to get you in here because I am sure both you and Doc would have gone through the same experiences. I started out not liking 2020 cricket. Pardon me, I'm even using the old name 2020, the old term, right?
That's
so
right.
You see how instinctive it is. I started there, and I started out by being very harsh on our players. Over the years, I've come to understand the players' position. I think sympathetic to their positions. I've come to incorporate T20 cricket into my own conceptualization of cricket, so that I've accepted, look, it's cricket, whether we like it or not, and with that thing. And I've gotten to this point here, somebody, a female who learned about cricket as she said she was growing up, but she learned a lot more about cricket from following this program. So, and so she texted me last night to ask about the Champions Trophy, to say she's going through and she's not seen West Indies.
You didn't tell her we haven't played that competition for a few times.
and I know she's on the program here tonight. And I basically say it's a long story. It's a long story.
Yeah.
But Basil, I'm asked, I blurted out on Friday night as we were previewing this program to Doc, that I cannot think of the last time that the West Indies put its best playing 11 on the park in all three formats. Even the format that our players are playing most, we have a hard time putting our best 11 on the park. Have we run out of excuses, Basil, and that the world is seeing it for what it is? Here is a team, here is a country, a region that once dominated the game. And we're into a new era. And it's an era that calls for a balance between those at the top who control the game and the players themselves, saying we're going to get some money, but we're going to play for we country. Have we run out of excuses for our players, for our administrators? What? Talk to me.
Look, that's interesting you talk about excuses, because I was on Andrew Mason's program last Tuesday, and the president of the West Indies board was on, as well as the director of cricket. And Andrew asked a pointed question to the director of cricket regarding Alzarri Joseph's absence from the team in Pakistan.
Yes.
And him being a centrally contracted player. The director of cricket came up with a reasoning that Andrew admonished him, where he stated, well, in Pakistan, we're not going to be as reliant on fast bowling. It's going to be more spin. So he asked for the time off to go and play in this league. So we granted him. He's a guy who has always dedicated himself to the West Indies, playing all three formats, etc., etc. And when Andrew admonished him, well, Dr. Shallow has to protect his protege. So Dr. Shallow then came on along the similar lines, saying that Alzarri, since he was a youngster, has always played and so on and so forth. And he feels that the guys on the team with Bascom are doing a good job, somewhere along those lines, in the players giving them time. Like for example, Rutherford missed is Rutherford and Hope, right?
Rutherford and Hope. Yeah.
The T20 section against Bangladesh, and then Hussein missed one of the games, right? So those guys could leave for the Big Bash, right? And he noted all of those things. But I feel West Indies, there has to be a serious education of our players. A real sit down. I mean, they have sat down, but when I mean sit down, you got to put everything on the table. The money, what our cricket is, what would be the situation, what are the responsibilities of the players to this brand, upon whose shoulders these guys stand, right? There has to be a serious discussion on that front. One, with those players at international, but also that conversation has to be had continuously until it gets in. These young players that are coming through understand, right? Because without the West Indies brand, they will never ascend to those T20 big money that they're getting, right? And one of the things they need to understand also, this current landscape we see with T20 cricket, with a bunch of these leagues, is not a tenable situation. Some of these leagues are going to fall by the wayside. The big one's going to remain the IPLs, the Big Bash, Pakistan Super League, the South Africa League, and England with their 100. Even they are talking about doing some revamping of their 100, and West Indies with the CPL. But one of the things I've noticed, just to segue a little bit on the CPL, in the last few years, the cricket has not been that good. And why it's not been that good? Because we're not been attracting, for other reasons, we have not been getting the better players to come and play in the CPL. So what I'm saying, the opportunities to play in all these domestic tournaments is going to shrink somewhat, because a lot of these T10s and all of those things going to fall by the wayside, because it's getting to a point where it's saturated. That You got Big Bash going on. You got South Africa going on right now. You got the ITL. Who's gonna want to keep up? Because it's like what we say in Guyana, you get gains, right? I could tell you, me frankly, I rarely watch a T20 cricket outside of international T20 cricket. I more watch the women play T20 cricket because it's not as much. It is not so gains. Use the Guyana word again. Gains
you.
because you don't see as much of that version of the cricket. But the men. Oh my gosh, when I hear the guys talking in our chats about what going on, what Rutherford doing in Big Bash, then what look at this. Sharfin is such a big one. Sharfin left West Indies team, went to play in some games in the Big Bash. Now Sharfin is in the desert. They're in UAE playing in the other tournament now, right? And some other players. But I don't look at any of those things. I don't even look at the IPL. I never was a fan of the IPL from its inception, right? Like you, T20 cricket only appealed to me when the Stanford Trophy, because there was some nationalism in that tournament, and I knew the players, Guyana and back in Guyana, right? To me, the Stanford Trophy was the funnest T20 tournament for me, right? Because it brought back to me as growing up back in Guyana in the Shell Shield and those kinds of things. That was the feeling, the emotions I had for that tournament. I don't have the same for no other T20. So it don't pull me only when West Indies playing or we got international T20 cricket. That's it for me.
Doc, Basil raised the question there that we have to do this sit down with these players. And you hear that they've met with the players, they've sat down with the players and they've talked to them. And as I listen to Basil, I'm thinking, yes, what is it they're talking to these players about? Because it seems to me that Basil is saying that we have to have a talk that goes beyond the obvious. Because I think the obvious.
A quick pin, Dr. Hines, the talk I just described is what New Zealand cricket had with the players. They went and they opened the books to the players. They didn't just come and, let's listen to what your challenge is. They opened the books and let them see the reality. All right, continue.
Yes, Doc, where you stand on that? Are we running out?
It's a great idea, but I'm telling you, based on the feedback that I get, the players don't. I don't know if it's our culture or what, but the players don't even listen to you because they've got this culture. Who the hell what could you tell me? I'm making much more money than you, So it's not a want for talking to these players. I mean, I can tell you all kinds of stories with Gary Sobers going and trying to correct something that Shea Hope was doing. You tell him that's old time stuff and other stories such as those. Okay, but so I don't think it's the lack of talking, because that's the way you see the players of the past. That's the way we used to do things. I used to be, I remember coming up playing KS Cup, or before I even got into the team, I was 12 man, 13. I used to be glad to be 13th man, just to be there among, when you played DCC, for example. Of course, we had Basil Butcher, Vincent Mears on our side, and DCC had Clive Lloyd, Dolphin, all the famous names, Colin Wiltshire. You're sitting in a dressing room and you believe that you're in heaven, just listening.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the guys you used to talk to, Basil Butcher, for example. I grew up under him. And you listen to those guys. It's even when I played in the national team at the age of 19, and I played with the big stars. I mean, even though you're playing on the national team, you're glad to just be in the company of them. So anything that they tell you, you believe it's gospel, but not anymore. To me, it's all about the money, and I don't know if you can change the thinking of players to say, well, here it's not all about money, because that's what it comes down to now. Mm-hmm. It's about money, and I am making more than you. So money is the standing as to what where you are. So if I'm making more money, then you can't talk to me and tell me anything.
But that's have
That is
we?
the challenge. That is the
Yeah,
challenge.
yeah, and I agree with you. I agree with you. I don't think you're deviating from what Basil is saying. The
Yeah.
point is, you, Dr. Adams, born and grow in Christianburg. You left Ugowe, as we would say, and you would be making more money than all them people back there at a certain point. In Christianburg. Would you ever think about going back and telling your headmaster,
No,
talk to me, I'm making more money than you can?
absolutely not.
It's
Stop.
a different
Stop.
world.
You and I know we still have the respect for those people. When I
Yeah.
see those people, you
Yes.
still, you still talk about them, because you know what you tell people. I hear you say it, and every one of us say it. I say it all the time in public statements. You thank those people for putting you where you are, so you have that reverence for them up to
Mhm.
today.
Yes.
Because you tell yourself, had it not been for them, you could
Yes.
not be where you are. And that is why a lot of us go back into our community,
Mhm.
because we say it's our turn now to do what they did. So we have a reverence for them and what they did, but not these days. These days it's the money, the money that drives everything. And I don't know how you change that. I don't know how you change that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, what I propose, yeah, you do it at the level of the international, but to me, more the people that we can, I mean, and we got to show this in concrete, tangible terms, showing to these young players, look, this is reason. And also, I remember a guy, he's a former CEO of CW, of West Indies board, said to me they had commissioned Tony Howard, who was then the chief operations officer of West Indies Cricket Board, to do a study as to how much it costs when we invest for a player from under 15 all the way through to international. And he said it came up to a couple million US per player.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think, I mean, there are certain truths that these players don't know, right? Something like that. Because when you hear an administrator say, we invest this money in these guys, yeah, that's a general statement. But when you actually now bring and show them the data, this is the amount of money is invested for you to get from under 15 to get to become a West Indies cricketer, right? And then you're going to tell us kick rocks or whatever. You have a responsibility, just like those who came before you did similar. You have a responsibility to continue to keep this brand to a point where it can be thriving, right? Yeah. Or else you are thinking selfishly, because what's going to happen to those who come behind you? They may not be that brand. So that opportunity that you got may not be for the generations come after you. Is that what you want it to be?
Yeah. Basil, look, this is a common sense question this person is asking here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a common sense question.
Yeah.
And I assume he's asking, are this big money that they're making? The
only league I know of that actually pays to the boards a percentage of the money the player makes for the specific teams. The only league that does that is IPL. The reason why the IPL did that is because, remember, no Indian players are allowed to play elsewhere. And, if people would start to say, wait, you're just taking all the guys. So it's something like 10%, and it's supposedly split 3 ways. So if your guy makes 100,000 US, 10% would be paid to the West Indies Cricket Board. They keep 1/3. The guy on the board keep 1/3, and the other third goes to the club of the player.
You got your answer there, Blessing.
Yeah.
You got your answer there. Only the IPL. Yeah. And this is not done by...
I know. I don't think any other league does that. That's something, because I think Cameron had brought that up to have this thing expanded to all leagues. That where players go, we, the board, must get a percentage, because we're the ones that invested to develop these guys. So you got to pay a percentage, and just put it put it in football terms, soccer. When a player is loaned from a club to the next club, there is a fee, right? The club that getting this player got to pay the other club a fee. So it's similar. We are loaning our players to these franchise teams around the world. So because none of them is developing our players. So if you're going to be getting our players, you need to pay us a fee. You know, it's similarly, we need to change also the dynamic of this bilateral series in terms of money, where the tourists get zero money, and the entity that's hosting, they get all the money, and all they do is pay for your accommodation and travel around the country, but you got to pay for your place to come and to go, you know, to come to the country and go, and then they take care of all the costs. That put West Indies in a situation where the only 2 times West Indies board makes money from tours is when India and England come to the West Indies. Every other time, when anybody comes to the Caribbean, is either at a loss or they may break even. But from my outside, all the other tours is pretty much at a loss, because when you check it out, the Caribbean is the most expensive place in the cricket world to tour, because when these teams usually come to the Caribbean, usually it is during tourist season, which is high season. And it's not like you could jump in a car from Barbados and then drive to Jamaica, or drive to Antigua, or drive to Trinidad like you could do elsewhere, right? You got to fly a plane, right? You ain't got no choice. You got to fly a plane, and that's a serious expense there again, right? So, and the hotels is not cheap, and they don't put them guys up at no
motel.
Eight motel, right?
And,
these guys
and
are staying the best.
Let me add to that again, and this came from Cameron. As a matter of fact, what Basil says there, before this reciprocal, visit by the various team, before that, the touring team, when let's say we go to Australia or England, we got a fee. I think he said it was $62,000 per test or something that came back when you tour. And then they changed that. So you were guaranteed. And what Dave said that was what was keeping us afloat. So if we go on a tour to Australia or England, we're guaranteed that certain amount of money per test that we're getting. So they changed it now to say, well, okay, when Australia come to the West Indies, it's going to do what Basil says, we're going to keep everything, but, all the expenses and everything, of course, we are still responsible. But then we're not making any money with those tours coming to the West Indies. So now, because people are not even showing up, look at that, this last series here in Australia.
Almost 1 million people showed up.
Absolutely. So when people come to the West Indies, there's no money to be made. There's no money for us to make. But at least we used to be kept afloat because we used to get that fee when we tour. But now we're not getting any fee when we tour, and we're not even getting any fee when they come back in terms of that reciprocity and them coming back to. So we're getting hit from both sides. We're getting hit from both sides now, and that's one of the dilemmas that we're heading in here now.
I would like to say,
yes, go ahead,
because that was when the Future Shores tour thing changed. Now, you asked about this quote unquote 2-tier.
Yes.
I go with what Mike Atherton said. 2 division, but not 2-tier, because 2-tier for me, the connotation is that you get banished to the other, and then you get or we can use it in terms of society, the haves and the have-nots.
Yes.
But 2 division would mean there are certain things that come with that. And I would say this, because if you do this 2 division, there are certain things that will have to come with it. And this is a chance to revamp the entire structure of test playing. One, what we just talking about, this revenue sharing would have to be part of this, right? There would have to be, in my view, equitable revenue sharing when it comes to the TV rights of test cricket to all the teams in both divisions, right? Because the goal is you're trying to get all the teams to rise, right? Two, Holden made a very interesting thing where outside or other than just playing the guys in your division, every team in that lower quote-unquote second division would also get a chance to play against the top teams one time in the cycle, like they come on tour. So, you know, you get revenue coming into the smaller nations, right? Things like that to change the whole environment of what test cricket is, because the way test cricket is set up today, it's a de facto two-tier system as it is. But now we got a chance to, I feel, if this can come, this is an opportunity to blow that up, to make it a more equitable, so you can truly grow the test game and bring it back to prominence around all the nations, not just Australia, England, and India. And I even look, South Africa just played Pakistan, and I looked at the games, and those were some exciting, especially the first test, exciting. And there was some decent crowds in South Africa, right? Some decent crowds. And what was very nice to see in those crowds, there were a lot of young boys and girls enjoying the cricket who would be the future. So when you see a crowd that, you know, parents coming with their children, is reminiscent of the old days. So when people say that this test cricket is, in my view, it's always been because the quality of players are lacking. And if we produce exciting players again, I mean, you know this, Dr. Hines, and Vincent know it too, because we used to go home. Even when West Indies started losing in the 2000s, and Borders still used to pack, because you come in and see, you got Brian Lara, you got Carl Hooper. You would pay your money any day to turn up to see players like that, regardless, even if your team is not the top team anymore. But those are box office people. But we have no players like that today.
Very interesting point. I remember 2004 traveling from the United States to Antigua, not knowing that I was going to see Lara.
Make the 400.
Make the 400. But there I was. And that ground was full. This is 10 years.
I went to this test match in that series in Jamaica when we get bowled for 56.
Yes.
Sabina Park was packed. Right. I remember one of the things was so interesting about that test match, because I got an older brother, one of my older brothers, he came. So I went with him at because he wanted to pick up some tickets for his girlfriend was coming to join him. And we went at the box office at Sabina Park. And what was so interesting, they had a whole bunch of Black British Caribbean people who came down for the scene. I have never seen so many Black Caribbean people coming to the Caribbean to see test cricket. I go all the different places over the years, but I never see a large contingent of them. You used to get a 1-1. You remember Pipe Man, the Guyanese guy, Pipe Man. Right. You know, he and a couple Guyanese guys used to come down, but not like what I saw in Jamaica, right? Because they felt there was West Indies cricket was gonna come. I run into a couple of them after the match. They say, we going out to we got days we could go out to the resorts in Jamaica.
You know, Doc, and Basil, let me say a couple of things. We still into sugar in Guyana and a couple of places in the Caribbean, and we are subsidizing sugar. You know, it takes us about 40 cents a pound to make sugar, and we got to sell it on the world market at 12 cents and so on. So what we are doing in effect, we are subsidizing the buyers of our sugar.
Yes,
as Doc would say, right?
Sure, absolutely.
We are subsidizing them. in the same way that we are creating players, we are producing players for
That's right.
this thing. So I want to put that on the table to make the point that the problem you're talking about in cricket is a larger structural problem.
Yes, exactly.
In societies like ours.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's
Go ahead.
why I see this division thing as an opportunity to throw all of those things onto the table.
And you know what?
Change the landscape.
Yeah, and you know what Basil says, and that's exactly what I was getting at in terms of the looking at cricket as a holistic. The West Indies will not be able to solve the problem, by itself. Okay.
Yeah.
And instead of these guys going and sitting down at the ICC, because this area is just greed, it's all about money. Because to start with, what I read, this initial meeting will be among only the big three. This is a serious discussion. Anyway, so instead of them talking about, tier systems and all of this type of stuff, like Basil said, put everything on the table. How do we get the best players to compete in Test cricket?
Correct.
The West Indies, you've got a problem with all your players. Okay, let's work with those PLs, those franchise cricket, to see, let's come up with some kind of an agreement to make sure that what we put out there as a product on the field, everybody, you're putting your best players at all time, especially when you're representing your country, because that's where it starts, because that's where you're going to get the crowds of people who are emotionally connected to your national teams. That's where the discussion has to be. It's not just saying, well, I'm going to go to tier. What the hell does that mean?
Exactly.
You have to put everything on the table, including making sure that that you're getting the best players on the field for most of the time, if not 100%, at least close to 100%. And there can be a formula worked out if all of the cricketing entities come together and make that decision.
I think so.
Look, India, you're here in India right now after the shellacking they get in Australia. Now you hear the coach and them telling Kohli and all of them who ain't play a domestic game in over 12 years.
Yes.
Y'all got to go and play domestic cricket. I just read the chief selector turned on KL Rahul. He want to take a break. No.
Yep.
If India start, if they're feeling the squeeze, you imagine what going on with us.
That's right.
Yep.
Right? Again, that should tell them this thing on time. But look, we getting our regional tournament will be starting in a few weeks. We got a bunch of guys all over the world playing T20 cricket that had they been home playing in the domestically in our for their thing, the standard would be higher. It would be it is potentially a lot more compelling cricket. More people would want to watch because they're getting to see some of our better international players competing. Now it's gonna be them guys who are simply trying to make a team playing against each other. So how compelling that's going to be.
That's right. And what is going to be your outcome? Because when you come to pick your 11, whether it's for ODI, T20, Test match, you are really going to pick the established guys. Yeah. I mean, if Hope and Puran and them make themselves available to go in the Test team, they're the ones who are going to be playing Test cricket. And the guys who are left behind to play the competition at home are not going to get a look in. So from whatever angle you look at it, I think we are all agreed here that all the stakeholders, players, administrators, the leagues, ICC, everybody needs to sit down and take
absolutely.
Yeah. The whole cricket environment as is has to be transformed. Yeah. How it is right now is untenable.
It's untenable.
But the problem we have again, and this here is not new. Nobody else, even when from what I gather, is even when by the way, I've been to a couple of the ICC board meetings, and you sit there, and there are only 3 people who control the entire meetings.
Right, of course, the big 3.
The big 3. Those are the 3, and everybody else sit down quiet and listening, and that has got to stop because we're not even giving input. It's just to give these other countries are glad to be there. They're happy just to be on the board. And and nobody is saying anything. So whatever these big three want, they sit there, everybody sit quiet. But there has to be a voice from these other countries to say, okay, here is our problem, because I don't even know if the big three understands, the problem of these other countries, because it's not affecting them. So if we're not expressing it to them in a forceful manner, we're just gonna be left pushed aside, and we have to have a strong voice at these forums.
I heard this from somebody who used to go to board meetings representing the West Indies, and I asked the question, and the person said to me, "Look, there have been times where you have the quote unquote have-nots starting to gang up together, because India, Australia, and England can't play with each other forever, and he said, as soon as you start to get some kind of coalition going, and India get word of it, India gonna offer one of them, we gonna come to y'all, and all they thinking is short term. They're not seeing the larger, and right away the coalition falls apart.
Yeah, and I remember, and again, I'm going beyond the boundary here. 30 years ago, the United States came up with this thing of a single market in the hemisphere and so forth, which would have drowned our little Caribbean countries, because we would have been competing on a playing field. And Brazil used its comparable power as the big economy after the United States and so on, and push back against that thing, and eventually didn't materialize. The point I'm making is Brazil stood up for small countries like those in the Caribbean, Latin America, against what would have been a wiping out if they had gotten through with that single market and economy that they were talking about at the hemispheric level. Why India? Why India? No, all right, we are from the Caribbean. We know the historic role of England, right? Australia, we know, is an appendage of England. Mm-hmm. And I am not saying that, well, you kind of say, all right, but you kind of expect Australia and England to behave in a certain kind of way.
Exactly.
Historically. What puzzles me is why India, which is now in the big league, which now has the kind of leverage to stand up. When we were beating the world, we never said we're not going to play in India.
Nope.
We went to India, we went to Pakistan, we went to Sri Lanka and so on. We may not have done as much as we could have done in those days, but eventually when Sri Lanka got going, we started visiting Sri Lanka and so on and so forth. Why, what is it about the India of today that beyond the boundary understanding of what they could do with the power they have for cricket in the so-called post-colonial society? What is, has India lost its marbles? What's the story here?
Dr. Hines, that's something that has been most disappointing for me regarding India, because India used to complain bitterly about the Australians, the English, and so on, how they ran the ICC and how they favored and so on. And now they get into the same seat of England and Australia, and instead of trying to bring a more equitable world thing, they're behaving probably worse than those.
Worse than them.
Than those
guys, it comes down to one thing.
Yeah, it's all about the money.
It's about money and greed. Well, it's not only about the money. No, bear in mind that it's greed.
Yes, it is.
Greed and selfishness. Okay, that's all it comes down to, is greed. I remember when India was probably the lowest ranked country.
Exactly.
That's right.
Beat them like a drum.
I mean, it was a no contest. And look where they have come. We, like Basil said, we never said we ain't going to India. As a matter of fact, if you talk to the old timers, and Basil is even closer to that, nobody wanted to go to India.
That's right.
Nobody's going to go to India. They want to drink the water, nothing at all.
I remember
So they had
that.
reasons not to go, but guess what? They still used to go.
Fredo said he went to India one time. He said he went to India 3 times. One time, the last time, I never again, or something along them lines. I mean, my dad went to India like about 3 or 4 times, and he said it was not a place he wanted to go to because of the conditions. It was hard to tour in India, very hard. I myself had the opportunity to go there with the U.S. team in more modern times, and still it wasn't easy. I went there. The coach of our team had gone to India several times in Larry Gomes. Larry Gomes had a whole suitcase of his own canned food and the biscuit and all of them things. Larry said, I'm not going to be spending the tour on the toilet.
At that time, at them times, I don't believe they had pectate and them things.
No, I mean, I remember when we landed in Hyderabad at the airport, and we coming through to go to where we gotta pick up the bags and things. The first sign we saw: do not drink the water. You know, they had water fountains and the big signs that do not drink the water. You know, I mean,
but that's what it comes down to, Dr. Hines. It comes down to greed and selfishness, and forgetting where you come from, and that's what it is. And you know, I was even at one of the ICC meetings, even when they were selecting people to the board and stuff like that, and believe it or not, the associate members, they have a powerful say in who gets elected. But they're bending over backwards to whatever this big three wants. They've got the votes that they can determine who gets in there and who gets in these positions. But again, a few may, like in normal life in every country, you know, if you don't buck the system, as long as you don't buck the system, you get a little position here and a little position there. So that is what is going on. We still that's unless that changes, but the associate members, if they come together, because they're the ones who are suffering, we're the ones who are suffering, they can make a big difference in how the ICC is being managed. But you know, they don't. So it's always been the big three, and now India's basically calling the shots.
I mean, Dr. Hines, look at a comparable situation. The New York Yankees, by far, in using baseball analogy, was the biggest market team in baseball, the richest team in baseball, right? And the New York Yankees are actually the people who invented the regional sports networks that we see all over the country today, because they decided and created a Yes Network with partners. So outside of Major League TV, the contracts with the different networks that televise Major League Baseball, they formed this regional network that would televise all of Yankee baseball, right? So now they're getting money they were getting buku of money from that regional entity. So, but all the monies that came in from paraphernalia, from a league sources, were equitably split amongst all the teams, because there was a time the Kansas City Royals, they used to call them the New York Yankees Farm Club, because as soon as the Kansas City Royals get a good player and his contract comes up, you know, they cannot afford to pay him. So a place like the New York Yankees, he got free agent for the money. So I'm saying, India similarly, that ICC money split equally. But when India do their TV deal, bilateral TV deal, they're going to be making money more than anybody. So I agree with Vincent. There is greed, and they're not seeing the forest with the trees.
This week we start, I think, Wednesday, the first test match there in Pakistan. You know, we are there. We are there. Anything that we ought to be looking out for? Any forecast?
You know, it's interesting. Somebody asked me about who would be the 11 you would pick for the first test. And this is interesting, because if we're going to talk about um, horses or courses, right? Because I know looking at the team Pakistan pick, they're looking to set pitches like they
To
set
spin
to
through.
England
Like
in
they did
the
to
last
England the other
two
day.
matches, right? Because there ain't too many fast bowlers. No out and out fast bowler is on the Pakistan team, right? So you know where they're looking, and they very well know spin. Our players when they come to spin, just like genuine fast bowler, but even more so because Vincent would tell you it takes more skill to play spin than fast bowling. Fast bowling is a lot of it in fast bowling is guts. If you ain't got it, if you got guts, because all you gotta do is react. But spin, you gotta use the depth of the crease, the lateral length, use your feet. If you could sweep it, there's a lot of decisions you got to make with good spin. As much as if the ball turned in too, right? So I want to know if they're gonna pick Louis to play as the opening batsman, since they got some other guys on the team that we know are better players of spin than Louis. Are they gonna? That's an interesting. I want to see if they're gonna play Louis as the opening batsman, because I got a funny feeling. I mean, I can tell you, I might not have played Louis. You know, I might have looked at a Django or somebody else. You know, because I know those guys are better players of spin, and from ball one. You remember against England, then Pakistan opened with spin bowling. There was no seam bowling. So that might be an interesting thing. I looking forward to see if we're gonna do something like that.
Doc?
Hey, well, I'm gonna look on the other side. I saw a news release saying that because I look at this guy, I look at the quicks recently, Pakistani quicks, and I that in the recent series. And I thought they were awesome. Abbas. I was worried that Abbas was going to give our batsmen trouble.
The rest.
When I saw the team,
he's not there.
I said, wait a minute. Side to side, I said, wait a minute. I decided to go take a look. And when I look at the England series with the 3 test matches, here's how that series went. In the first test, England beat the pants out of them. They 2-1 them.
Yes.
You know what happened in the second test? And these two spinners did not play in the first test.
That's right.
Ali and Khan.
Nomad Ali and Sajid Khan.
The Sajid Khan. The mustache.
Yes.
In that first test, and listen to these numbers, and Basil, I don't know if this ever happened before. Listen, in the second test, in the first innings, these two guys bowled 54 out of 65 overs.
Correct.
These two guys alone. You know how many wickets they take? All 20.
Exactly.
All 20. Here's the other thing. In the third test, very similar game. In the third test, they bowled 36. No, they bowled 58. In the first inning, they bowled 58 out of 69 overs. In the second inning, they bowled 36 out of 37.
Correct.
They took all 20.
All 20 again.
So in the 2 test matches, these guys took 39 out of 40, out of the 40 wickets. They took 39.
Correct.
So you tell me, them playing the first test, they get beat. They bring these two guys in. They took 39. Do you know what is going to happen with the West Indies team? That is my biggest concern. They're already who we play, because England got a better batting team.
Players of spin than we.
Play spin better than we do. So that is my big comparison as to what we're going to be facing here.
Mr. Duckett, when Mr. Duckett went to Pakistan the first time, Mr. Duckett wanted to beat Pakistan spinners left, right, and center. When they set the pitch for them, Mr. Duckett was not. And Mr. Duckett is probably one of the best sweepers in the game.
Yes. And he made a big hunter in the first test.
He got a pint of broom in his hand when he batting spin bowling, right? And so, our guys, when it comes to sweeping, that's probably the weakest stroke in the West Indies. So, what's it gonna be? An examination by spin?
It will be an examination. But Basil, has this ever happened that two dominate a team like this?
Vincent, I think that was a record what those two guys did. When they did. I mean, they went to the same lane. You saw what they did. They brought these industrial fans to be blowing on the pitch to make sure it dry.
And here's the other thing. Here's the other thing, guys. And I know Basil by Babar is now starting to strike.
Yeah, Babar
Again.
starting to stroke it.
The man in his last 3 innings, the man
Yes.
scored 54, I think 58 and 81. So
Yeah.
he's now starting to strike.
He's starting to get back in stride. The
So-
captain the
So I
captain
don't know.
made
I
a
don't
100.
know. I don't know how we're gonna handle it, but my biggest fear is how are we gonna be able to handle those? And I don't see where we can. If England couldn't, I can't see.
Not with those batsmen that we have there.
No.
Nope.
No.
So that's where we might get a lot of three day tests finishing.
3 days. You talking plenty. These things might finish in 2 days. We might got a day where you get about 17 wickets fall in 1 day.
But remember, the only hope is you remember what had happened when we sent that team to Bangladesh, that second
Oh
string.
yeah, that's true.
Yes.
True.
There's always the
Yeah. I mean, the
exception.
games.
I don't
the
want
games
to
still
say
has to be
fluke.
played. The
Yes.
game still has to be played on the field. And the one thing I would say about Moti and Warakan, both of them have shown a propensity to do well in helpful conditions. So we'll see how the two of them do.
Yeah, Leach didn't do that. Of course, he wasn't a dominant today, but Leach
No.
picked up a couple 4-wicket haul and stuff in them 2 tests too. So but but these two guys, I looked at them bowl between sleep and wake, and I could not believe it's not that these guys were bowling magic or something. I mean, it was just
One is the normal off spinner, regular off spinner.
Yeah. Sajul Khan, and the other one is a Noman Ali is the left arm
Left
spinner.
arm spinner.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing about Noman Ali is that he's a very accurate bowler,
yes.
right?
Puts it there on the dime.
So accurate is like Jadeja. Jadeja is an accurate bowler, and then the Jadeja catch you where the ball bouncing and turning and spinning and so on is horrors, because he always on the stumps. So now you always got to play. So now when you get in the extra turn and bunks and got men around the bat is a whole different story.
A whole different story. We shall see.
Yes.
Gentlemen, anything you want to touch on before we go? Because I know, Basil, you were...
Yeah. I just want to say finally, I saw that the big skipper, they're putting the big skipper to be the head of the academy, some academy that they're developing in Guyana. And I would just hope that they're not using the big skipper's name
That's right.
and his stature to say and give the big skipper the leeway to really have a serious voice in formulating what would be this academy, because the big skipper has been talking about this now for about 40 years, right? There was a time he was actually asked when the Australians were putting together their academy back in the early 80s. When he retired, they asked him to come and be the head of their academy. And he, loyalty said,
Loyalty said no. Right.
I can't go and be the head academy for one of my arch enemies. It reminded me of a conversation I had a privy to sit down and listen to back in 2008 at Kensington after the Days we was playing Australia. And I went up there with my father in the Legends booth, and all them Barbados legends, all them is coming there from the BCA thing at the end of the day's play. And you name them: Seymour Norris, Cammy Smith, Wes Hall, Charlie Griffith, Branco. I could Clive come in and look over and say, "Is the 1966 team here?" And David Holford, all of them. And the question was asked, could you coach against the West Indies? Simoner said, no, I couldn't do that. David Hoffer said, no, I couldn't do that. And Roland, my cousin Roland, said, man, you're full of shit. It's a profession. I coach against West Indies or whatever. The old boy said, no, I couldn't do that. I could coach against West Indies. So it was interesting to hear the perspectives of players of a different era talking, you know, about what West Indies meant, playing for West Indies meant to them, to now come against West Indies. That could never be on their cards.
Going back to Sir Clive, he wanted this type of thing with a passion. And he, as a matter of fact, he's not going in there cold. Clive has a plan, and he has a plan in writing.
Yes.
Matter of fact, he had even offered it up, not to, I think, to the West Indies administration. So he has a plan, and he's very passionate about it. If he sits, he talks to you about it all. He talks to people about it all the time. I know he shared a lot of things with me. So the good thing is he has a passion and he knows the game. And hopefully, like Basil says, hopefully he will get the resources that is required and the support that is required to get it done. And I'm going to tell you, if he gets his way, you're going to see a major difference. Because the one thing, you remember we were talking about somebody, getting somebody to talk to these players. The one person that he has proven to be, when he brought that entire West Indies team together that was missing before he arrived, basically, that unity, the one person who can talk and get the ears and get people to listen, it would be Clive. It would be Clive in terms of influencing and convincing these younger players as to what they ought to be doing. It would be Clive. But so I'm hoping that he gets the support and it's very tangible and he's allowed to do his thing and it does not become political.
Exactly.
Because that's what everything in Guyana now is so political. So hopefully it will not be political and he gets his way.
Yes.
I share your views on that. And I remember that same interview I did with Clive 25 years ago, talking a little bit with him off camera and his ideas for the Cricket Academy. This is 25 years ago, so it was out of this world then. And I'm saying that to say, say that Doc, you're right. He's not going in there not knowing what he wants. This thing, as Basil says, been like 40 years. He's been saying, here's hoping that he has the opportunity because Guyana has the resources. You can't talk about no money now.
Yes, right.
He has the resources to do it. And if Clive can put something together in Guyana, and it can spin off into the rest of the West Indies, I think that's the thing. If there's one contribution we can make to cricket with our oil money, is that. Yes. Not more T20 as they are trying to
and do. The key thing, what's going to happen here, hopefully again, he's going to be allowed to do this. Clive will only have people who are competent in this area to be on his team, if he's allowed to. That's going to be the key. It's what is going to be his support staff, or that's going to be the key.
Yeah, I mean, because somebody questioned, because his age, he's 80 years old and so on, and then somebody said, well, we got a guy now going to be president in the same thing. And what I said to the person who was saying that in regards to the incoming president here in the United States, I said the difference is he got an infrastructure, right?
That's right.
We ain't got the down there.
So
that is a big difference, right? Because obviously Sir Clive would not have the same energy of he had 25 years ago. So it's important that he has the support, that he just throw up his hands after 2 morning and say, look, this is making sense. I getting more headache than I at my age, at my golden age, I getting more headache because of the foolishness going on, right? So let's hope that he gets the full support, and we could get a real professional academy in Guyana. And the thing about it, again, like I was talking about the back to front in the governance, that we could have a professionalized academy that would show, well, Guyana board people and other entities in Guyana and elsewhere in the region. This is how you have to, these are the practices, the values, etc., that has to occur if we're going to be successful again as a world cricketing entity.
Basil Butcher Jr., you all Boxers don't beat up and say, I didn't learn the junior thing in your village. It's true. Because we never had a junior, nobody. Big people say you're not junior. If you carry your daddy name, you're your own man. Dr. Vincent Adams, Basil Butcher Jr., it's always a pleasure.
Same here.
You guys
Yes, sir. Again, Happy New Year and all the best for the year. Health, prosperity, and life. All right.
Thank you all.
Yep.
And to you, the audience, is always a pleasure that you guys continue to stay with us and to help us make sense of who we are, who we were, who we are, and of course, what we aspire to be. Cricket, like politics, like literature, like poetry, like dance, it's all part of our larger date with destiny. We have to be a people who always keep that focus from the shores of Africa, right through the Middle Passage, linking up with our Amerindian brothers and sisters here. And later on, our sisters and brothers come in at the end of slavery. We're all in this thing together. And we cannot be a one-track people. We have never been a one-track people. We keep on keeping on, because if we stop, cat eat with dinner. Some of you will say cat already eat out with dinner, but you know, we have to be positive. We have to be positive. See you all next week.
Rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here comes the West Indies. And when you're facing the generals, nearly every ball is a funeral. And when we batting, brother, go and put your men on the boundary line. And if you give we a liquor, that is merely a hiccup. Look, you win the little battle, you lose the war. It's the same result every time. Everybody sing. Here comes the West Indies. Here comes the West Indies. Them rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here comes the West Indies. I tell you now, here comes the West Indies. Here comes the West Indies. Them bad boys gonna bring you to your knees. Here comes the West Indies.